Now I'd like to welcome Jennifer Kutas of the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, and they are also a seed sponsor. Jennifer will moderate our last panel, or our last group of 10-minute presentations. Jennifer?
Thanks, Jeff, and welcome. I am with the Innovation Center, the Tom Baker Innovation Center and the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. It is over 100 square feet. It has 40 startup companies in there that I help on a daily basis. There is long-term and short-term lease. There is a booth that you guys can stop by and see us if you have any other questions. This session is the high-tech company showcase in life sciences, energy, IT, and advanced manufacturing part series. Each company will have 10 minutes to present. You will be able to, after the presentation, you can actually go see the presenter at their exhibit, or you can leave your business card at the table and they will contact you. So the first one that will be coming up will be Mike Zwick, Vice President and Research of Operations of Empire Genomics.
Well, thank you to the organizers and sponsors for allowing us to tell you today about Empire Genomics. Empire Genomics is a molecular diagnostics company in a very exciting field. So molecular diagnostics plays into the area of personalized medicine, which if you've read any of the literature, it's a very hot area right now. Most of the new drugs that are coming out in therapeutic areas are being co-developed with companion diagnostics, and that's the space that we play in. So this is the old paradigm of the way drugs were developed and diagnostic tests were used. As you can see, it was sort of a reactive scenario. You would be diagnosed with a disease, given a treatment, the treatment would often fail. You would try another treatment, and of course the drug or the disease exacerbates and gets worse until you finally find the right drug that works. And often at that time, the disease has progressed to a state where it's seriously affected your life. The new paradigm is personalized medicine. The idea here, of course, is to catch the disease early and also to catch the disease and understand what the treatment would be that would specifically treat this disease. So as you've heard with one of the other presenters, there's Herceptin, which is a monoclonal antibody drug that was actually developed back in the late 90s. That was the first drug that was developed with the companion diagnostic in mind. That is, when that drug was approved, there was a diagnostic approved with it, and that diagnostic is applied, given to people that have breast cancer, because only a certain percentage of people, women with breast cancer, are appropriate for that type of therapeutic. Now, it's taken a while for this to take off. There are about 70 tests that have been used since that time to help diagnose, but those haven't been federally approved. So they're used sort of in a research or clinical setting, but haven't been mandated. Now, last year was a change. There were 2 drugs that were approved, cancer drugs that were approved, along with the diagnostics, because each of them only treat a subsegment of those patients with that particular type of cancer. So I think what we're seeing now is finally the era of personalized medicine is now starting to catch up, with where we were hoping it would be a few years ago. So Empire Genomics, I'll tell you a little bit about the company. The founder is Dr. Norma Nowak. You've probably seen her. She's often quoted in the press and very prominent researcher at Roswell and UB. She played a critical role in the Human Genome Project. And many of the reagents for the Human Genome Project are actually products that we sell as a company. She now is using these to realize the promise of the Human Genome Project, which really is personalized medicine. Professor at UB, and she runs the Genomic Core facility at Roswell Park Cancer Institute. So our mission as a company really is to develop companion diagnostics. That is to take this genomic information, which we're learning more and more about all the time, and translate that into a method to help with therapeutics. Again, what you're seeing, I think, with therapeutics is now instead of global treatments with a lot of side effects, chemotherapy, you're seeing a lot more personalized treatments, targeted therapies, but of course those targeted therapies don't work for the whole patient population. And companion diagnostics are really necessary for those products to work effectively. What is our product? Well, actually, we have a lot of products. We have what's called research reagents, that is things you can order from a catalog. We manufacture, people can just order them off the shelf. We do custom design products, and we do assay development. So the product portfolio that we have is pretty broad and plays into multiple segments of the life science industry. So here's sort of the translated version of how personalized medicine is supposed to work. So if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, that's the trees, if you will. So what's the biggest change you could see if you're trying to diagnose a disease at the genetic level? So if you look, cancer in particular often causes genetic changes, and these can be seen in some instances at a very high level. That is, you can use somewhat non-sophisticated tools to see these changes, large chromosomal changes. We play more in the more specific areas below that. So the middle area is an area where you do gene analysis. So these are where we make these FISH probes. These are fluorescently labeled pieces of DNA that can actually localize where genes are on particular chromosomes. And then at the very more detailed level, at the top, sort of at the leaf level of the forest, if you will, are very detailed levels that look at very precise genetic information. So what are the markets that we're playing in? Well, they're evolving, and many of them are growing. So personalized medicine, as I said, is just taking off now. The research space on the left, genomics research, is quite large. It's growing also. It's about a $3 billion market. It's mature in that there are a lot of people that are purchasing reagents and services. It is growing quite rapidly. The clinical diagnostic and testing market is the one that we would like to enter, and that is in fact why we're looking to raise some money here. It's part of about a $50 billion in vitro diagnostics market. A lot of esoteric testing, very small disease market testing, but genomics is the fastest growing segment in that marketplace. The future, again, is personalized medicine, currently about a $100 million market, but growing very rapidly. Again, if you look at, for instance, AstraZeneca, one of the major therapeutic developers, 65% of their new drugs will require a personalized diagnostic test. It's a nascent market, a lot of partnerships and alliances, and again, it's called companion diagnostics. So we're different than a lot of other biotech companies in that we sell products and we have customers, and it's a broad customer segment, and the company has had customers almost since the inception. So if you look at some of the names there, some of those you're going to recognize. It's a diverse customer base. It's researchers, it's pharma companies, reference labs, and it's global. So it's not dependent on how the economy is doing in the United States or in Europe. It's a global market. They're diagnostic services. And we recently did announce a strategic alliance with ICON, and that's significant because that brings a lot of new business into the company. They are a contract research organization that runs clinical trials for large pharmaceutical companies, and they're sending us a lot of customers. We do all the genomic testing for that organization. So how risky is it to invest in a company like us? Well, actually not that risky, because if you look on the services side of the research market, it's very low risk. You can look at reimbursement, competition. The only risk there is financing. As we all know, financing is one of the more challenging things you have in running a startup company. But other than that, once you get into the CLIA lab, which is a clinical testing lab, there is some more risk, but really most of the markets that we play in have very low barriers for us. We have a very strong history of growth. So again, unlike a lot of other companies, you can see, and these of course are actual revenue numbers from the company, the compound annual growth rate from 2007 to 2011 was 56%, and we anticipate even more rapid growth once we get into the clinical testing. This is the projected revenues and expenses, and if you look at 2011, that was sort of a seminal year for the company because revenues exceeded expenditures, and we expect that to continue moving forward. Capital needed, we're looking for a raise of $1.5 million, and again, as I said, the primary use of those funds will be to establish a New York State clinical lab on site so we can do clinical testing services. Hiring people, we're looking at some proprietary cancer diagnostic tests that we'd like to in-license, purchasing equipment, and then just to give us working capital to achieve our growth goals. If you look at us from an investment perspective, we think we're a pure execution play. That is, you can see the history of the company, and to achieve these goals, really it's just us executing on what we have already done in the past. We're a revenue generating company, very strong growth. We have an excellent management team. Anthony Johnson and myself are here today. We're in a very large and growing market, very low regulatory entanglements, especially in the research market. We're not wedded to any particular type of technology. There's a lot of industry consolidation, so the exit strategy has been seen with many other companies like us. And we're an efficient capital growth strategy. So the $1.5 million will lead to cash positive business, and the investment can be milestone driven. So as I said, myself and Anthony will be here, and I'd be happy to talk to you if anyone's interested. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Next is Robert Giannacosta, CTO of Thermal Gradient. Sorry.
Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about Thermal Gradient. We are also a medical diagnostic company, but in a different space. Well, what we do is the devices and systems that conduct the tests that you just heard about, and that is becoming a huge area in the diagnostic marketplace. We essentially are the microprocessor to the vacuum tube of technology as it relates to medical diagnostics, and we're extremely excited about this opportunity. So now is our time to really expand and penetrate. We're founded by industrial experience that is very deep. Myself, been in this business for 35 years, working for several of the major diagnostic companies and actually several startups. We have been working with very little equity capital, and the rest of our money has come from the Department of Homeland Security. We started out as a biodefense play and moved into medical diagnostics, and now most of our funding comes from the National Institutes of Health. We have an excellent IP position, extremely high barriers to entries for other folks. We have 2 issued patents and 4 pending. This covers all of our core technology and all of the applications that we go into, even beyond molecular diagnostics. We have outside validation. Again, we won some contracts where we were in competition with other device companies, and we were in one case the only one awarded such a grant. We've had several relationships with NIH. They like us very much, and we will continue with that relationship. And we did some work with SAIC, which is a huge biodefense company, and our relationship will continue with them in the near future, we hope. As I said, I'm no stranger to this business. I worked for companies that built extremely large laboratory instruments that you heard referred to as before. I've also worked for several startup companies. I wasn't founders at these, but I am now with Thermal Gradient, but I think my track record is rather impressive here. So we think that this is an extremely good play, and my partner, Joel Grover, is in the audience, acts as CEO. He also has extensive experience in high technology to market sorts of companies. So we think we have an outstanding team, and we would like to work with you folks. We have actually 2 pathways. Molecular diagnostic testing, or DNA testing,
is applicable into a huge array of areas: biodefense, diagnostic testing, food and water purity testing, etc. We are focusing now on the medical diagnostic space. And as you just heard, that's a $5 billion market. And we can play in that entire market. So we don't have to limit ourselves to a niche area. Within diagnostics, there are two pathways that are screaming for our level of technology. The top one shown here is the large reference laboratory. So the facilities that a LabCorp would put together, or your large hospital, the kinds of equipment that's sold by Beckman and Abbott and J&J. These companies sell equipment that they're essentially testing factories. They do chemistry testing once every 10 seconds. That throughput is absolutely imperative. But they can't do it with molecular diagnostics, the DNA-based test, which is far superior because of its sensitivity. The process is too slow. The automation is not very small, and so to have a large or have an instrument that does high throughput, the instrument is humongous, and so it's impractical. We have that missing piece. We are the only company who professes to do high-speed molecular-based diagnostic testing that can go into this clinical space. So you see our cartridge, the Flash HT cartridge. It's a small device. We have examples of it over on the side. It is the razor blade that is consumed by the razors here, consumed at a very high rate. 30 to 50 million cartridges would be consumed if these instruments were rolled out to the degree they are for clinical chemistry today. The module that runs it is very small. It fits in the size in the palm of your hand. That is what gets you the parallelism. And the speed I'm talking about here as an advantage is that we do the test in 8 minutes. No one can do a PCR nucleic acid-based test as fast as we can in a device that's that small. So if you want to build an instrument that does a test every minute, you only need 10 of these small modules to do that. Today, you would need about 120 equivalent modules to the way you do these tests today. So this is a huge opportunity for us. We have talked to all of these companies that you see here. They are our acquisition targets. We have relationships with these folks. They like what we do, and they are waiting for us to hand them what is essentially their prototype and show them that this can be done to their satisfaction, and we feel we are an immediate acquisition target. The other pathway is in the point-of-care market. These are for more portable, more distributed applications, such as hospital emergency rooms, clinics, doctor's offices, that sort of thing. But the parameters still apply. You have to be fast, you have to be self-contained, you have to be disposable. So that's a different cartridge, but it essentially does the same thing. But it runs in a different instrument. Instead of a large instrument, it runs on something that sits on a desktop. We feel we have the best answer for point of care. So this is the areas that we intend to go. Some of the players are the same in point of care that are in the clinical lab, some are different. Again, we have talked to all of these folks, and we are looking to move towards more lucrative relationships with them in the future. Here's the example of a clinical laboratory instrument. This is a clinical chemistry instrument. The companies like Roche and Beckman and Abbott and J&J, et cetera, they want to build this instrument, equivalent instrument, to do molecular-based testing. They can't, but they can with our device. And the key issue here is the throughput, and the 8-minute per test throughput that we have will finally enable this in a device that's low cost enough to be disposable. So this is the instrument that would be enabled by our technology. This is the razor blade. So I won't go into the detail of it, but it has extremely low cost. It has an attractive selling price for us, but it has to be low to the diagnostic company because they obviously have to have a piece of this. But we're talking about very large numbers, 30 to 50 million cartridges per year. That would be an annual revenue to us of about $150 million. We're talking about 4 to 5 years out from the funding event that we're trying to raise here. The point of care, it's a similar story, but now you're not interested in so much a high throughput and complicated instrument. You're actually competing with manual processes. You're a person in front of a table with all its labware. We feel that we can automate that process with a small desktop instrument with this sort of a cartridge, and we can go two ways. We can go into the market ourselves with our own cartridges and with our own systems, and you see the numbers there, or we can partner with some of the companies that you saw in the previous slide, where we would essentially be providing cartridges, not systems, but cartridges to them, and it also has some very lucrative financials. These numbers are about five years out. So what we're looking to do, we are a Series B round, but we operate more like a Series C company. This is not an R&D play. We have built everything that you see and that I've showed you and that we need to do. We just haven't done it in an integrated fashion to the satisfaction of some of these partners. So this is an integration issue here. A stage funding is okay. It's not like it's a $5 million proposition or nothing. We welcome a syndicate type of a structure. Again, it's an integration effort that we're dealing with. It's a low risk. So it's going to focus on our demonstration systems for the clinical laboratory and point of care. We have some low-hanging fruit for immediate revenue that we're going to explore as part of that raise, and some secondary objectives because we haven't done what we feel we need to do in terms of public relations and a conference attendance and that sort of thing. So the risk profile, I want to emphasize here that we don't have any more science to develop here. We do PCR every day at a high rate. I have a handful of devices on the table. We make these devices by the thousands. And this is a straightforward approach to make the demonstration system to the benefit of the point of care and the clinical folks. We've been validated by the Department of Homeland Security and NIH and SAIC. They like what we do. We will continue to work with those folks. We've gotten strong strategic partner interest, but the dynamic out there is they don't want to buy a $50 million technology acquisition. That's not the model anymore. They want to spend $200, $300, $400 million on a complete system that they can then integrate into their devices, and that's where we're going. The M&A atmosphere is extremely active. It's almost weekly where a large acquisition is announced, and we feel we're one of the best candidates for such a thing. So this is that exit strategy. This is an example of one that just occurred. A few years ago, HandyLab was purchased by Becton Dickinson for $330 million. They have our technology is far superior. We are about where they were we will be where they were 12 months from now after this funding. So we think we're a candidate for a $400 million plus acquisition 2 to 3 years from now. So we're extremely excited about our potential, and we hope you share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next, Colleen Costello, CEO and founder of Vital 4.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen Costello, CEO and founder of Vital IV. Vital IV has developed a product solution to bacterial infections acquired through the intravenous route. A huge problem that hospitals face is rampant and deadly bacterial infections, specifically through the intravenous route. These infections can actually cause dangerous bloodstream infections that are a leading cause of death in the United States. These infections affect 2 million patients per year with 12 to 25% mortality rate, and it can cost approximately $50,000 per case. It also causes 100,000 deaths and approximately $10 billion in unnecessary hospital costs per year. There are two major sources of these catheter-related infections. The first one being the IV fluid, and this IV fluid can get contaminated through several different sources. For example, an exposed connector site in the picture seen. And then this fluid directly enters a patient's bloodstream, and this can cause dangerous systemic bloodstream infections. The second source being the IV wound site that often become inflamed with collected bacteria. Vital IV has developed a technology product portfolio for the disinfection of a range of IV lines. As you can see, implemented on 2 specific kinds of IV lines in the picture, as well as here, this product utilizes visible light technology. That is journal-published research that's proven to kill a wide range of bacterial pathogens, including the antibiotic-resistant infection MRSA, which is a rampant problem in hospitals. It provides unparalleled 24/7 protection, and it's harmless to patients and staff as it does utilize visible light technology. And again, it fits on all types of IV lines that are utilized in hospitals. This solution is a supplemental prototype device to the existing IV lines that are currently out there that addresses both of these sources of infection. So the total product is a 2-element product that has dual light exposure to 100% of these infection site sources. And we have provisional patent filed on this technology currently. As a biomedical engineer, I actually only recently, 3 months ago, identified this as a major problem and went out to nurses in the field who are the first-hand users, specifically at some local Albany hospitals, where they indicated that this was a major problem at their respective facilities. Since then, this product has been pitched to leading hospitals in the United States, like the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, where there is extreme interest in implementation of this technology at those facilities. There are 1.2 billion IVs administered annually, and our initial focus will be in the intensive care units, where 10% of the IVs are administered, however they absorb 20% of the hospital costs. Additionally listed is the patients that we will initially target that are the high use and high risk patients. A little bit about our competition. There is dual cap, which is an isopropyl alcohol cap that is directly applied to the luer connections in the example picture that I showed before. So it specifically just addresses the growth at those connections. Similar products do exist, and there's no data out on the effectiveness of this specific product. BioPatch is a wound site antiseptic pad that specifically targets the wound site. It has a claimed life of 7 days and approximately 60% decrease in infection. However, isopropyl alcohol and antiseptic are incomplete solutions to this major problem. Some drawbacks: the dual cap only prevents bacteria when the line is not in use. It doesn't actually prevent bacteria when the drug infusions are actually occurring. And it must be used every time a line is modified or changed. BioPatch studies have actually shown that it has a shortened lifespan and it needs to be replaced 3 times more than cited. And again, it only specifically targets the wound site. Comparatively, Vital IV protects against 100% of these infection site sources 24/7. This device is a set it and forget it device that is much easier to use for nurses, as you can see in the example pictures that I showed. Our go-to-market plan encompasses several different aspects, specifically direct hospital visits and trade shows for awareness campaign of the benefits of this technology. We feel that implementation with some influential organizations will spur buying patterns, which can lead to a consistent revenue stream. And implementation with large healthcare plans would mean mandated patient use of this technology. Intravenous drug lines come in kits and they're sold by distributors. They have all the necessary tools to insert an IV line, so we plan to specifically target the distributors and manufacturers of these kits so that our technology can be implemented as one of the tools that's used in every single IV insertion. And we will continue our direct marketing to our specific target customers. Brief look at the financials. Because this is LED technology, we feel we can make this very inexpensively for around $15. And due to the costs and life-saving benefits of this technology, sell it for upwards of $50 for a profit of around $35. Now, in a medium-sized teaching hospital, there's 7,500 IV lines used per year. 1,500 of these frequently infected central line catheters and 6,000 peripheral line catheters. A total adoption of this technology in a hospital would cost around $375,000 for the entire year. Now, with conservative estimates of 60% infection reduction, which is very conservative compared to the research, you can see the significant decrease in the hospital excess costs as well as excess hospital days. Implementation of this technology would save one hospital approximately $2.5 million and 2,000 excess hospital days per year. Taking a brief look at our sales projections, I'll talk in a minute about the development, but within the year we plan to fully develop the technology and work on our FDA approval process. In the year we do start selling these devices. As I mentioned, we will specifically target the intensive care units and these highly infected central lines in approximately 10 hospitals. With proof of efficacy specifically on these central line catheters, we plan to branch out to both central lines and peripheral lines, and increasingly at hospitals that are adopting our technology. And these are very conservative estimates, as are 6,000 hospitals in the United States alone. And you can see some sales projections out through year 6 there, based on our rough financials at this point. As I mentioned before, I'm a biomedical engineer with 6 years experience at some top research facilities and companies. My co-founder, James, is actually here, has experience in product development and project management, and is actually a recent CEG award winner. Our top advisor currently is Stephen J. Petty, who has had success with 3 past biomedical startups. He actually won most likely to be funded at this event last year. Our business advisor, Joe Smith, also has vast experience in this field, being CEO of 3 previous biomedical companies as well. Dr. Cody El-Mutar at Albany Medical has been advising us on implementation of this technology, specifically targeted towards the hospital environment, so we can make sure that it's absolutely market viable. We have a network of RPI alumni that are actually directing us on our development plan, specifically geared toward the FDA for this specific type of medical device. Dick Frederick, who is a dedicated serial entrepreneur, has been invaluable as a business advisor as well. And we have, with my experience and our advisor's experience, have various other medical professionals at different locations advising us. Brief look at our progress timeline. Again, we're very early stage at this point. We do have a prototype developed. We are an LLC. We have our IP protected with a provisional patent. We've done some in-depth market investigations, and we have secured $50,000 seed funding thus far. Within the next 6 months, we have a very clear vision of the goals we want to accomplish, specifically run business experiments to get the market viability, adoption estimates, and price points for these products, and in parallel run our necessary lab testing at some top facilities that we've already been in contact with, and start our approval processes necessary for implementation of this technology, and we will complete our industrial design for our finished product. Within year 1, we plan to secure significant angel funding, and this sort of device will only require a 510(k) submission for the FDA, so we plan to have that approval at that time. And we will grow our sales team as well as explore strategic partners and/or licensing buyers. We will also explore our other product concepts that we have during that time. Our ask today is for a strategic partner and advisor who has experience and connections in the medical device field, specifically FDA submissions for some of our other products concepts that we have as well. Our first round of funding, currently we're looking for $500,000, primarily for the finished product development with an initial production run, as well as the testing and consulting necessary for FDA approval. Those are our primary goals. And looking into the future, we plan to identify our optimal exit strategy. There are a lot of options for medical device companies this day and age in considering certain licensing agreements and potentially strategic development partnerships or acquisitions by a top medical buyout player. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Colleen. Next up is Stephen A. Pernara, PhD, President and CEO of QuaDPharma.
Thank you very much. Sorry. So QuaDPharma. QuaDPharma is a contract manufacturing and testing company specializing in servicing actually the pharmaceutical arena, not only pharmaceutical, but pharmaceutical, biopharma, and medical device companies. We are located right outside of Buffalo, New York, in Clarence, right down Route 5. If you guys are going east home, you can see the molecule. I don't think you can see it from the thruway, but feel free to stop by. We have an 18,000 square foot facility. It's a GMP facility, which just means that we are registered with the FDA. In-house, we have, on the top, you can see it in highlighted here. We have manufacturing suites, ISO Class 7 and ISO Class 8 areas, as well as microbiology labs and chemistry labs to perform the testing. I figured I'd put this up there just from a general standpoint of looking at what it takes to get a drug from concept to commercial production and exactly where QuaDPharma fits in. So typically the concept in R&D is in the beginning, early phases of the developmental phase. That's where the IP is created, and a lot of times that's where a lot of the venture money goes. QuaDPharma actually would get involved when that drug is coming out of R&D and going into phase 1 clinical trials, and we can also touch all of these phases individually and all together as from a soup to nuts standpoint. So phase 1, help into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we can actually do process validation and support commercialization of products. So we do consulting as well as can actually perform the development in-house for customers. So I put down here, feed the lab. So the concept of QuaDPharma was really around the heart of the lab, or the heart of the company being the lab. The lab is really where the most revenue can be generated and the highest profit margins are. So when we touch phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and process validation and commercial products, we're doing those on the production side of things, but we really want to take those business aspects and feed the lab and do the testing associated with all of those processes. So I broke our service offering up in 2 different categories. The soup to nuts, which is the pharmaceutical manufacturing services, and again, we can do biopharma, pharma, and medical device support. We can also do the pharmaceutical support services. These are kind of the one-offs, the QA consulting, some of the testing, raw material testing, or finished goods testing. And we really look at this as the pharmaceutical support services are really the foot in the door. What we found early on is that we need a foot in the door to get into. You can't go to Big Pharma and say, hey, I want to manufacture your product, send it on over. Right? You have to kind of convince them and grow the relationship with them. In doing that, you offer a little tidbit. Hey, we'll do your raw material testing for you, and we found that to be extremely effective. So we do the pharmaceutical support services, which then will lead to additional pharmaceutical manufacturing services. We could do those independently and together. So QuaDPharma started. I should say the idea of QuaDPharma started in around 2009, 2010, where the whole QuaDPharma team was working at a company called CPL. So CPL is a large-scale manufacturing organization where they were actually obviously doing contract work. They were focused on large-scale manufacturing, so they didn't really deal with the small stuff. In my time at CPL, I had the opportunity to run the tube and applicator business at CPL. And what I found was that there were 2 types of customers. There were the customers that needed the 500,000 units, 1 million units, pound it out, get it done, low profits, and they were happy with that. There was a second class, but not inferior, of customers, and they really had smaller products. They had smaller product needs. So what they wanted to do is they came in. A lot of times they had the innovative technology, and they needed a couple thousand units run, or up to a couple tens of thousands of units run. And with that, during a reorganization within CPL, they actually afforded me the opportunity to take the smaller business entity and actually roll out a formal service offering for CPL. We in the first 3 months in rolling that service offering out, we actually achieved about $4 million in revenue. So early on into that, about 4 months into that service offering, there was an announcement made at CPL that the Buffalo facility was going to be closing down. As a result, QuaDPharma, we didn't spin off, but we actually defected, I guess you could say, and went down the road and started our own facility. And what we're doing is we're focusing again on the smaller types of business. And what that leads to is that actually leads to smaller types of business but higher profit margins. And it's really an untapped niche at this point in time. So we have a proven track record, and we've done it before. I've done it before at a large CMO. So our target, again, small pieces of business. And when you talk small pieces of business, you look at virtual companies that are out there that have maybe 3 to 5 individuals. They have some licensing on a product. They're not looking, again, to run toothpaste. They're looking to run something that typically, again, from a unit perspective, is 50,000 units or less typically. So I highlighted, and again, pharmaceutical companies, R&D companies, we can help all those types of establishments. I just wanted to highlight one on the orphan drugs. It's a $55 billion market, and that's only one market that we actually can get into. We can get into a vast number of other markets. The competitors in the area are really focused on the liquid fill. So typically what you see is when you get companies that are developing in this area from a contract manufacturing standpoint, they really focus on one dosage form. We're actually not focusing on one dosage form. We're focusing on different dosage forms, but on the smaller level from a production standpoint. So 2011, 2012. I'm going to put that there. So what we did was we established over 30 relationships in the past year and actually almost a year and a half. We're almost a year and a half old, coming up in June. So we've established over 30 relationships. 3 of the relationships that we have established and paying customers are in the audience, which I thank you. We have, in 2011, 2012, we quoted over $6 million worth of business. That was 20 of those customers. We've obtained in 2011 over $300,000 in revenue. That was from 5 of those customers. 2012, this number actually has gone up significantly in the past month and a half. We have obtained a little over $200,000 in contracts. That was as of February. As of today, where we stand, we're at about $1.9 million worth of contracts currently. So this slide is, this just highlights. We all went on payroll January 1st of 2011. That's the first graph that you see, the first pillars. We basically converted an office space to a pharmaceutical company in about 9 months, which required some expenditures. We actually obtained our first customer January 4th of 2011. So 4 days into getting the business up and running, we had our first customer. September, I highlighted here the end of last year, September to December, we actually were profitable with over $260,000 worth of revenue, and that amounted to about 87% of our revenue for 2011. 2012, I highlighted January and February here. Since that point in time, we have over $250,000 in revenue currently booked, and again, on the contract arena, we're significantly higher. In this year, so 2012, we quoted on about, of that $6 million that was highlighted previously, about over $5 million worth of contracts that we have quoted on. So I split that into 2 different pies, the no infrastructure needed and the capital needed. So of that $3.3 million, we currently have obtained about $1.8 million worth of contracts out of that pie, which I'm extremely happy about. Our historic hit rate from a contract of bidding and actually obtaining the business is about anywhere from 30 to 50%. The number's a little rough just because we've been in business for about a year and a half. And with that, what we're finding is some of the stuff that we bid on last year is actually starting to come in. So that's why I have a range there. We're looking for, from a capital investment need, to obtain that $2.3 million, and again, that pie just keeps growing every day that we're in business. We're growing from a word of mouth standpoint at this point in time, as well as Ryan Downey and myself have been the road show and wearing the multiple hats. So I put this projection out there, and so 2011, again, a little over $300,000. 2012, we're projected for about $1.7 million. This company is a viable company without investment money currently. We currently have turned a profit and have been profitable for about the past 8 months. What I'm looking to do from a growth and development of the business is get some investment capital in so that we can hit the accelerator on this. I have extremely conservative projections if you talk to me, I'm normally throw out the conservative numbers, and I could talk to you about the aggressive numbers independently. So 2012, you can see the differences from a current growth rate. Again, it's a perfectly viable company without investor money, but we really want to step on the gas and obtain different contracts in different arenas. In closing, we're not only seeking some money, but we're actually seeking some individuals that could help strategically with the business. So we're looking for a partnership. We're all about relationships, not only with customers internally with our employees, but also we're looking for somebody that we can start a great relationship from an investment standpoint. We're looking for approximately $1 million. It's somewhat negotiable and flexible, of course. If you want to give more, that's always good. We're looking for working capital, and also because we are currently the road show, we're looking to really solidify our sales and marketing division and get to really wrap something and create a skeleton out of that we can put some meat on. We're looking to expand capabilities and obtain some of that business that currently we cannot go after because from a cash flow standpoint, we can't afford to do that from a flexibility standpoint, achieve that. I believe that's the last slide. That is. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Next is John Willis, CEO of Ultranian Diagnostics.
Thank you very much. Ultranian Diagnostics is a medical device company located on the University at Albany East Campus in Rensselaer, New York. We've been in business since 2005. The market we're addressing is diabetes. It's a global epidemic. There are hundreds of millions of people with the disease around the world. It's growing by a double-digit rate, especially in Asia and the Middle East. In the U.S., there are 26 million people, but most of them cannot control their blood glucose levels to within the range recommended by the American Diabetes Association. That's because current technology called fingerstick testing is too painful to perform. It's not performed frequently enough to provide the kind of information you need to maintain a healthy glucose level. Because of that, it leads to serious short and long-term complications that cost the U.S. economy over $200 billion a year to treat. Our solution to that is our Biolog CGM. It consists of 3 parts. The first is a sensor module with a disposable sensor that attaches to the skin surface and measures glucose within the interstitial fluid of the dermis. Data is wirelessly transmitted to a handheld device for display and storage. There are also built-in alarms that can warn of impending high or low glucose levels, so you can do something to avoid that from happening. In addition, data can be sent over longer distances by cellular or Wi-Fi network to a parent or other health care provider. As opposed to fingerstick testing, which is essentially a snapshot in time, our device performs thousands of measurements per day and is the equivalent of a moving picture with sound. Last fall, we completed our first clinical study, an NIH-funded study at Upstate Medical University in Syracuse. We studied 15 subjects over a 12-hour period. Each one of them received three meals during that period, and while our device measured the continuous glucose levels, blood samples were drawn periodically and measured using a standard laboratory method so we can compare ourselves and see how accurate we were versus the lab. In the end, we showed we had excellent accuracy, better than the competition that's out there right now. There are 2 devices out there. And as part of our study, we needed to do a pain study, and that turned out to be the device was pain-free over the 12-hour wear period. And in addition, there were no adverse skin reactions over that period of time. The market we're addressing is the $16 billion market for fingerstick blood glucose monitoring. So we're a disruptive technology. It's expected to grow to over $20 billion by 2017. Our target market are those people in the U.S. that both type 1 and type 2 diabetics who require daily injections of insulin. And that market's approximately $6 billion. Continuous glucose monitoring is an emerging market. It's estimated right now to be about 250 million worldwide out of that $16 billion. But it's expected to grow significantly to over $2 billion by 2017. And part of what's driving that is the ability or the possibility of mating a continuous glucose sensor with an insulin pump to form the artificial pancreas, which is the long-sought goal of holy grail of this business. Here there are 4 major players in the fingerstick blood glucose monitor. We've got Bayer, Roche, Johnson & Johnson, and Abbott, none of which has a continuous monitor on the market just yet. Abbott had one but withdrew it from the market, and right now there's 2 devices out there, one from Medtronic, MiniMed, and one from a company called Dexcom. Medtronic has a lion's share of that market. However, these devices are very painful, and also they're not very accurate, so they need to be recalibrated numerous times per day using fingerstick technology. And the other thing about these 2 devices is they use electrochemistry to measure the glucose, the level of glucose directly. And the reason I say that is there are other competing technologies out there, especially in what's called the non-invasive market, where they use some kind of light or electromagnetic field to try to measure glucose through the skin. Well, these devices have been out there about 20 years. None of them have even come close to being approved by the FDA, and it's doubtful that at least within the next 5 to 10 years, one of them will be approved. The bottom line is our team has over 80 years of experience. you know, even though we're lean and mean, we've got a lot of experience. I've been in the business over 30 years. I spent about 20 years of my career in the Boston area working for a number of both large and small companies in the medical device industry, from initial concept through manufacturing, scale-up, and marketing. I have a PhD in organic chemistry from the University of Connecticut. Chris Gesswein, he's responsible for grants administration, business development, and regulatory issues. Ted Miner, he's got over 40 years of experience in the medical device business, especially as it relates to prototype and scale-up for manufacturing. Andrew Armenia is our engineer. He's developed all the electronics on his own, wrote all the software, and built the devices and tested them. And we also have as a business advisor, Bill Cromie. He's an MD and former CEO of CDPHP, which is a healthcare provider in the Albany area. So far, we've raised over $2 million in angel funding and another $600,000 in NIH grants. With that money, we've been able to complete our first clinical study, so we've done very well. We're looking to close on a Series B preferred round of $3 million. That could be tranched based on milestones. With that money, we expect to increase the headcount significantly, become compliant with FDA good manufacturing practices, complete a second clinical study of 50 subjects over a 5-day wear period, and also submit our first FDA pre-market approval module. And if we can complete this clinical study and show 5-day use, we'll be a prime candidate for acquisition because we'll have proven that the device can work for up to 5 days, which is required to be competitive in this business. With this money, we'd significantly increase our headcount. If we need to bring this device through the FDA, we're looking to be acquired, hopefully after this second clinical study, because we'll have accomplished our goals. But barring that, we're also prepared to bring it through the FDA on our own. We would need another Series C round of $9 million to do that. This would allow us to complete our Gen 3 device and scale it up for semi-automated manufacturing and submit the remainder of our PMA modules to the FDA and complete 2 more clinical studies. We're looking to obtain FDA approvals early in 2015 with first sales beginning towards the end of 2015. In summary, we're addressing a very large market. It's got a hefty growth rate. We've got patents filed. We've got applications in process. We've got significant trade secrets which provide a unique and differentiated technology. We were able to complete our first clinical study for $2.3 million, and our closest competitor, a company called Dexcom, spent $40 million to get to the same place we are. So we're a very capital-efficient organization. And our exit strategy is within the next 2 years to develop a strategic partnership with a major healthcare provider to help us scale up for manufacturing and marketing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Next is John Connolly, VP Corp Development for RNA Diagnostics.
Thank you. RNA Diagnostics is a cancer molecular diagnostics company located in Toronto, across the border. And I'm going to tell you today about a very disruptive technology that's going to radically improve the management of cancer chemotherapy. So, put yourselves in the shoes of a breast cancer patient who's just had her first cycle of chemotherapy. Do you want to know whether that chemotherapy is working now, or do you want to wait 26 weeks and find out that the chemotherapy provided no benefit to you? This is the problem that we address at RNA Diagnostics. So here's the problem. 50% of breast cancer patients will receive chemotherapy as a part of their treatment. Yet less than 1 in 4 of those patients will derive any long-term benefit from the chemotherapy. This means that we are over-treating the 75% of those patients who derive no benefit from the therapy. But they all experience the negative side effects of the chemotherapy. This is a major problem facing breast cancer specialists today. Today they have no way of knowing which of those patients will respond to the chemotherapy until after the chemotherapy has been completed. So at RNA Diagnostics, we address this serious problem with what we call the first real-time chemotherapy guidance tool. The RNA disruption assay is the only diagnostic test that predicts early during treatment how a patient will respond to chemotherapy. So after an RNA disruption assay test, or RDA test, the patients who are responding to the chemotherapy can continue that chemotherapy with confidence, while those non-responders can be spared the toxic effects of ineffective chemotherapy and can be switched to alternate therapies that may improve and enhance their survival benefit. This discovery was made during a large-scale clinical trial conducted by the National Cancer Institute of Canada in Ontario, and we have protected this important discovery with a family of broad patents. So the benefits of RDA are significant for patients and for their physicians and for payers. So for patients, the non-responders can now be identified quickly so they can be spared the toxic side effects of the chemotherapy, and they can be put on alternate therapies that may improve their survival benefit. For their physicians, they now have a useful tool to which effectively manage their chemotherapy regimens for their patients. And significantly for healthcare payers around the world, the adoption of this technology will save significant amounts of money, which we anticipate in the area of $40,000 to $60,000 per patient. So there is significant benefits for all parties in the who will use this technology. The team is led by Dr. Ken Pritzker, who's the former Chief of Pathology and Lab Medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, one of the most well-recognized institutions in Canada. He's leading a team that has a lot of experience in medical technology, finance, and biochemistry. We're very excited about our clinical advisory board, which we've been recruiting over the last 2 years. We've been able to attract some of the top key opinion leaders in Europe and in the USA. The 2 German fellows lead the German Breast Group, which is the largest group or consortium of breast cancer specialists in Europe doing breast cancer trials. And Harry Baer is one of the top people in the NSABP, which is the leading research group in the U.S. out of Pittsburgh, who have done some of the seminal clinical trials in breast cancer over the last 2 decades. And they are helping us to design clinical trials and to encourage adoption of this technology. So just a word on the technology. What we do is we look at a patient's ribosomal RNA after the patient has been treated with chemotherapy or a cycle of chemotherapy. If we see a high degree of ribosomal RNA disruption or fragmentation, it means that the chemotherapy is working and that that patient should continue on that regimen. If we see an inadequate level of RNA disruption, it means that continued cycles of chemotherapy will not lead to success, and then that patient should be taken off that therapy and they should try something different. This is a very significant advance in the field, and when we tell this to oncologists, both here and in Europe, they all say that if this is as good as you say it is, this is going to be a game changer, and we are going to want to implement this technology in our daily practice, and we expect that it will become a standard of care in the management of chemotherapy in breast cancer. So this is how we implement RDA in the clinic. After the patient has received her chemotherapy infusion, her doctor will take a fine needle aspirate biopsy. This is a procedure that's performed in a doctor's office without imaging guidance. That biopsy will be immediately placed in a RNA stabilization medium. That'll be sent to a central lab where we will isolate the RNA, run it across a standard bioanalyzer instrument to produce electropherogram data, which we will then interpret using our proprietary algorithms. What's interesting to note here is that we're using standard chemistries, standard instrumentation. Our proprietary position comes into play when we apply our proprietary algorithms to produce the score, which is then sent back for a fee to the ordering physician. We've got a very strong IP position covering the use of the RNA analysis for measuring response to chemotherapy for cancers. We now have a family of 3 very broad patents, and we are developing further proprietary algorithms to interpret these RNA results. The market for this product in breast cancer alone exceeds $500 million. We expect to achieve sales of $100 million within 6 years because there is no adequate solution to this very pressing problem in the market today. We have a very unique solution, and we expect widespread adoption as the clinical evidence comes in from the clinical trials that we have got underway at the moment. So, current methods for measuring response to chemotherapy are physical palpation of the tumor by the doctor. This makes the doc and her patient feel a little better, but it really doesn't predict efficacy. Likewise, imaging methods such as MRI and PET overestimate the efficacy of chemotherapy, and they are expensive and they're not very useful. The gene panel test that you may have heard of, Genomics Health's Oncotype DX and the MammaPrint from Agendia, these tests predict before treatment whether a patient has a high or a low probability of 10-year disease recurrence. And based on that probability, the doc will discuss with his patient or her patient whether or not that patient should be given chemotherapy. These tests don't say whether the chemotherapy will be effective. The RNA disruption assay is the only test that predicts whether the chemotherapy is working or not. That's a very unique type of test. Our market entry strategy is to enter into the European market under the self-certification process by the end of 2013. This allows us to get into the market with a minimum of regulatory oversight. We'll follow that up with entry into the U.S. with a lab-developed test, working with CLIA partners to deliver the test as a service. Again, this is a method that gets us into the market without FDA oversight, and it's a method that's being used by many companies such as Myriad Genetics and Genomic Health to sell hundreds of millions of dollars of these tests annually. We do recognize that there may be a change in the rules, and we will be collecting information and data in a manner which is submissible to the FDA for regulatory approval over the next 4 to 5 years. We're working very quickly now to get RDA into the marketplace. We have a clinical trial going on at Sunnybrook. We're working with the Ministry of Health in Ontario on a multi-center trial. And we are working with a group in northern Italy on a number of trials, and we're planning trials with the NSABP and the German Breast Group. We've raised we put together about $3 million over the last 2 years. We just finished a round with syndicated angel groups in Ontario, and we'll be looking to raise $2 million in the fall to fund our clinical trials going into next year, and we should be in commercial revenue by the end of 2013. Our exit strategy is well-defined. This is a very hot area. These are a number of companies that have been taken out at large multiples of revenue before they make any, some of them before they make profits. So we're very confident that if we execute on our business plan, we will have an exit within 4 to 5 years. So we've got a unique solution to a very serious problem. It's a large market in breast cancer alone. We think we can expand this to other cancers. We have clinical validation, and we've got a number of trials underway, and we're going to be in the market within 18 and 24 months. And if you'd like to talk to us more, my colleague John Jordan is here, and Nick DiPietro, one of our investors from the Niagara Group in Niagara, Canada, is also here, and we'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.